My name is Eddie. I am a customer success manager here at monday.com. And I really appreciate you taking the time today to join us for the Onboarding Your Team Advanced webinar, because this is such an important function of everyone's workflow. So I'm going to go through some cool examples of how you can onboard your team using Monday, and also how you can onboard your team onto the actual Monday platform as well. So you get both an example of how to use it just organizationally for all of your new hires, and also how to get people really comfortable with using our tool. So the interesting thing about the concept of onboarding is that no matter what industry you're in, everyone has to essentially create a plan of action to get new team members aligned with your organizational goals. Everyone is going to be trying to equip your new hires to do well within their new job function. And of course, we want to ensure that the new hire feels very well supported and adopts well to your culture. Let's go over to the next slide. So this is basically just like an overview of how we're going to spend the next hour together. The first 35 minutes or so, I'm going to do lots of talking at you, and we'll have some moments where you can participate and kind of join in on the fun. And then we're going to go over best practices and those features, and then we'll jump into some Q&A time for you guys so that you have some time to ask all of your questions. In doing the Q&A, it's very important that you use the actual Q&A box to add any of your questions, and that's just so that we can make sure that we have time to get to those. I won't be able to answer questions from the chat section because we just have too many participants here in this particular webinar. And of course, you're going to get what you put into the webinar, so definitely stay engaged, be sure to participate, and I think that you'll learn some cool things today. The things that we're going to cover. Today we're going to go on sort of a new hire journey, if you will. So we're going to explore the levels of onboarding and how you can build these functions into your monday.com account. So we're going to take the new hire through 3 phases of onboarding. We're going to welcome them to the company. We're going to welcome them to the actual team that they're joining and provide some training help through the system. And of course, we're going to do a product-specific onboarding. So that's going to be any tool that's central to their workflow. Today, we're going to focus on monday.com specifically, but you're going to be able to do this with any tools that they're using to manage their workflows or execute against any priorities, right? We're going to cover communication across departments and people so nothing slips through the cracks. We're going to create a solid feedback loop on the onboarding experience, because that's where you're going to start to get that value when you look at how you started doing things with the system and how those improvements will impact the new hires that are coming in the future. We'll talk about creating templates and the value of consistency with the onboarding process. And of course, we'll close out with pulling some of that really good data into our dashboards. And we'll just touch on dashboards because we do have one of those dashboard-specific webinars coming up in the near future, which I'll talk about later. Great, let's jump right in here. I'm going to open up my monday.com account. Now, the first thing that we want to start with is just that introduction, right? We just hired this amazing team member. His name is Keith. This is Keith here. Cool guy. What a superstar, right? We spent countless time, money, and resources to make sure that we were hiring the best person for the job. And now he's here. So Keith is already set up with his own boards, his own folders, and onboarding tools so he can hit the ground running. And this is just an example of something that we do internally at Monday. Whenever we have new people joining, we send a blast to the entire team, welcoming the person. We add a nice little photo for them. We get a bio, and we get some fun things here going. So just a quick, intro, fun tidbits about the person so that we get to know them. And that's a really nice starting place for someone who's onboarding, because when they finally do get into your monday.com account, there'll be a ton of replies down here. People will reach out either via Monday or through other forms of communication, even in person, just to share the excitement that they have from just that first email, right? So looking to the structure here, I already have this set up, right? We have welcome Keith. So this is Keith's folder. This is his space. This is where he's gonna feel most comfortable as he's like getting onboarded into the account. In that folder that's welcoming Keith, I have 3 onboarding boards that belong to him that's going to track the onboarding process through the month. So the first one is going to be our company onboarding flow. And this is, the kind of like nitty gritty stuff. Then we do the department onboarding, which is going to be like the more work-based, function-based, team-based items. And then we have the tool-based onboarding, which is going to be monday.com in this instance. So starting with the company, anyone who has ever done any work in operations or any work with organizing and onboarding for new employees understands the pains of having to juggle personalities, schedules, and transparency for progress. And even like that centralized feedback, right? Those things can become really tricky to manage, especially when you're talking about multiple new hires at once or having to like go through multiple teams to get them all set up. This board is a basic build out that will help keep things central for all of the teams that are involved and act as a resource for your new hires so that they have all the links that they need to complete all of the new systems that they're joining, all of the HR documents, and a quick guide on who to ask the questions to. So first things first, title, company onboarding flow, and then a description for our new hire here so that they understand what this board is used for. So this board in this instance is used to just get them set up on like those basic things, right? Like filling out the W-4, the I-9, showing their documentation. These are the groups that I have the board broken up into. The first thing they're gonna see is welcome and their name, right? Because we wanna make sure that they know that this is personalized, this is specifically for them, and they get a nice welcome presentation that's built right into the board. The next group is going to be what we would consider like the important, absolute, like must-do things, and that's usually like the HR stuff, the paperwork, the things they have to fill out, so that they're like at 100% on all the things that they need to do that are really important, both legally and just for like the operations of the business. Following that, the next course of action when you're onboarding a new employee is usually that you are having them sit with maybe your IT person or your office manager or someone who is responsible for getting people set up in those systems, and then really going through and making sure they're in every single system that your team is using, that all of the security protocols are in place. Those are like critical, essential things that need to happen whenever you're hiring someone for the team. And then we have the general to-dos. This is going to be more of like the culture fit items, right? So like send your first message in Slack or send your first at all to everyone in the monday.com account to introduce yourself. Maybe have some like coffee time with your office manager so you have that point of contact, get your fob for the building, things like that. Office swag, that's going to be like the next thing in line when we talk about like onboarding for the company experience. And of course, we want to be able to meet the team, right? So, many people, especially at startups now, when we do bring new people on, it's really important that we feel as small as possible so that people feel comfortable reaching out for resources and have a kind of like baseline understanding of the direction of the organization and how their role is going to tie into that. So meet the team. This is something that you would schedule in advance, probably using your executive assistant to kind of like work through all of those calendars. In this instance, we have it so that this person is meeting all of these people on the same day, just because that makes it easier for scheduling. And you can kind of determine where you like see value in who they're meeting, and if it's not necessary, you can roll that out later on for sure. And then this is really crucial too, like someone joining a new company. They might be nervous, they may not be sure of who to ask particular questions to. And this section is going to let them know based on category who they can lean on and who they can reach out to if they have any of those types of questions. So those are the groups that I have here. The first thing that Keith would do when he came into this board would be to look at this welcome presentation. You see there's a notification here. If we open this up, this is going to be where that like message was that we like announced for Keith. And then the welcome video, this is going to be the link column where that video lives so that they can go ahead and start to review that and get like baseline understanding of what's happening at the company level. I want to walk through the columns here for you so that you know why we have things set up this way and the value. So we have a people column. You can have multiple people in one column. I have the columns separated so that it's very clear and easy to understand for someone that's looking at the system with new eyes, that there is a division here where the new hire or the person that's going to be doing the training is here, and then this is the person that they're leaning on. This is what we're calling the lead person. So if they have questions along any of these items, this is going to be the person that they're reaching out to. This is also going to be how I inform the system when we talk about automations and who to notify. It's easier if you break it out this way because the system will just kind of like pull from one particular column. We have a general status column here and a date column attached to make that a deadline. And that's just so that we get a quick pulse on where we are for each of these items. Nice to kind of like check those off, make it green, so everyone's on the same page there. And then we also will trigger notifications based on a status if that deadline should hit and this thing is not completed yet. We have our link column. This is going to be your biggest resource when we talk about onboarding because this is how you are centralizing all of those resources for your new hire. So anything that you have, right? We can like add a welcome video. We can add a link to like our HRIS website, the PDF for our W-4s or all of the documents that needs to happen, an employee handbook. Usually these things are kind of scattered about or they end up in several places in the new hire's email and they have to go digging and searching for it. This is going to ensure that this is always living in one central place for that person. They know exactly where to go to find it. They don't have to like guess what the logins are for any of the accounts that they're going to be using through this process or for their workflow. It's all living here. It makes it very easy and very clean for them to kind of like get around and find your feet. And then we have the tags column. The tags column we're going to go over once we get towards the end because this is going to, and I'm sure you guys are, since we're in the advanced, you guys already know tags, you know how they work. But the value here is that for anyone who's unclear, you're able to create custom tags. In this instance, I'm using the tag onboarding, and that is going to allow you to group items that belong within the same function or the same kind of like topic, if you will, and you can do that cross-board using search everything, right? So if I wanted to see everything that I have tagged as onboarding, either for this particular person or for like a cohort of people that I'm onboarding, this is going to be the tag that bridges that gap instantly via search everything. And like I said, I'll be able to show you guys that a little bit later. So now looking at the actual tasks that we have here visually, we don't have a ton of things going on, but some things that stand out to me. I can see that we're done mostly with the HR things. This is scheduled because it's happening later, and we're going to come back to that actually when we have a little thing that we're going to do later with forms. And then I can see here where we have something that we're stuck on. And the value of Monday is that like these colors pop, you know exactly where you need to focus. And as someone who's managing the process here, this is something that's going to catch my attention immediately. So outside of seeing that it's stuck, I also see that there's a dog ear here. And if I hover over that, that is going to show me the details of what's happening. So in this instance, I, as the lead person here, reached out to finance to say, hey, we're having a weird issue with our VPN. Something with our licenses, we need to basically pay our system to add Keith, right? So because we can't add him into the system because we need payment from finance, I basically just dropped a note to this team so that this communication is all happening here in one place. And that also is going to show up in the update section here, right? So here we go, basically saying, hey guys, I need you to step in. I need you to take care of this so that we can get our new hire set up and working appropriately. Added a little fun GIF. I love GIFs and people appreciate them. So now our finance team can come right here to this notification on this board, see that we have an issue. They can work to resolve it. And once it's complete, they can click reply, or they can update the status to let us know that we're good to keep going through that process here. Another key point with notifications, we have the ability to have automations. I know you guys know all about automations as well. They're pretty much lifesavers. I want to make sure that we have connectivity between these two people. I want to make sure that my new hire and the lead are kind of like working together, and I don't trust that like it'll happen organically, right? So I want to make sure that the system is telling the lead when things happen. And we do that by building out notification-based automations. So if you go up to the top of a board, you click on the little robot, and let's say one of the automations that I want to do is I want to say when a status changes to something, notify someone. In that instance, let's say when a status, and let's click here for the status column, changes to done, I want to notify, and when you click notify, that is going to give you the option to basically build a custom message. So I can say, hey, and let's go with the lead. Let me say the item name has been completed, right? So now this user, the lead in this instance is going to get a notification that says, hey, and the lead's name, this pulse name has been completed. And now that we've done that, I need to now tell the system basically who I want to be notified in that instance. And I'm going to use the assignee column here, and I want anyone that's in the lead column to get this notification. And you want to do it by column because that person can change based on who is assigned for that particular item. When we add that to the board, now this is an active automation. Anytime a status is moved to done, that lead is going to get that notification, and they'll be able to like move through the steps as they see fit. Another type of thing that I want to set up here is I also want to know when things are not done by a certain date, right? So one of the things that we can do here, let's go to set due date reminders, and let's say when date arrives, notify someone. So I can say that I want, and sorry, my system is moving just a little bit slower than me. So I can say that when, let's go one day after, because we want to give our new hire some time to actually complete it. So one day after the date arrives, and let's say first thing in the morning, 9 a.m., I want to basically create this notification. So now that that's done, I'm going to use my date column here, and I'm going to, again, notify, and I'm going to say, hey, lead, check with your trainee because this has not been completed. And I'm going to reference the item name here. So now this person is going to get a notification that something's up. This wasn't completed on time. Check in, make sure they're okay. And then I'm going to set this to, again, the lead column because we want to give that flexibility on who we assign to those things. And let's add it to the board. And now those deadlines are going to hit, and we have like a full range of communication and automation happening on this particular board. So that's like the baseline for getting things up and running. We don't need to like over engineer what happens on like the company level because the next thing that we're going to focus on is going to be a little bit more complex, right? So now that we have Keith kind of like set up on platforms here, he knows most of the team and he knows where to go to answer some of his questions. We're going to move on to the next onboarding phase, which is going to be department-centered or like team-specific onboarding. So this is my department onboarding training flow, right? You'll notice immediately that this board is considerably more robust than our last board. And that's because we want to pull more data here than we were interested in pulling from our company level onboarding. This is a critical onboarding function that is going to lean more towards the training of our new teammates. So we really want to make sure we're solid here on all of the things that are happening. Some key differences in the other board as well. You can see here we have a talks section. So this is another way that we work internally here at Monday. And it's a really cool way to kind of keep things organized. And you can really add this type of function of a group to any board that you have in your account. But in speaking about this for onboarding specifically, the values here are going to be, this is going to be a place for Keith, or in this instance, Keith, but any of your new hires to feel comfortable, right? Like we want to be able to foster a place where they can have broad communication on the board level that's not tied to a specific item per se, right? So if they have just general questions about what they should be doing here, if they just want to chat around like what they're seeing, this is going to be the place where they can sort of start that process. And then we want to increase transparency. So you know, getting people into the habit of having those open conversations, being comfortable with kind of like chatting openly for like everyone in the organization to see is actually going to build a stronger team. So having a talks section might encourage that person to be more communicative instead of kind of like waiting until someone asks if they have questions. And then this is going to be a place where we can have dedicated notes, right? So we want this to be intentional. We want to create a safe space for thoughts and having a place where, you know, we are putting in notes from our one-on-ones that are happening between like the trainee and the buddy is going to be crucial to kind of like understanding the development of that onboarding flow and that process as we onboard them to the team. So coming here, I see for talks, the first thing it says, welcome to the team, Keith, read this, right? So that's like a directive. We know that this is something that has to get done. We go ahead and open it up. And now I can see here what needs to happen, right? So, hey, Keith, stoked to have you joining the team. Here's some helpful information. And then we have all the stuff and all the things. And now we can say, hey, getting started on this board, here are some pro tips, right? Where to, how to, when to, if you. And then let's like introduce the buddy system, right? So, hey, your buddy is Eddie, that's me. Let them know if you need any help. You guys are meeting on this date to start the process. And of course, always going with a fun GIF at the end to kind of liven things up here. Now I want to go through the groups of the board again. So like I said, we have the talk section, and this structure is a little bit different than the company onboarding. Here we have our presentations, videos, and resources section. The first thing we want for our new team member is that they have a really clear understanding of our purpose and what we're here to do as a team. And so we create this section so that we can pour in those resources, webinar videos, presentations, so that they get some historical context to the work that we're doing as a team. And then the rest of it kind of breaks down into more of like a training function, right? So we have week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4. And as you can see, those tasks are going to be different and with different goals as you're working through them. For each of these weeks, though, I start each week with a review of the previous week, or like for the first week, we do an introduction with the buddy, right? So like this is just so that we can set expectations, answer any questions, and kind of like shed light on what the experience will be going forward. And at the end of each group, I have just a check-in, right? Like, how are you feeling around the things that we just did for this week? That's going to be really important to get that person into the loop and the feel of providing feedback, because those things work both ways, and that'll help us improve the system overall. So each group, you know, start of the week, we're doing a review of the following week, and then we're ending the week just to see like how you're feeling. Like, let's make sure like we're kind of like moving in the right direction and things feel good. To go through the columns for you guys, again, I broke up the trainee and the buddy columns so that everyone's clear on who is who and who they can like report to if they need some help here. We have 3 status columns here, but we're using one as an actual status. So this is the one that we're using as an actual status on these items, and the other 2, category and type, those are going to be kind of like indicators or like ways that we can categorize these particular items. And those are not things that we want our new hire to be able to change, but this is just telling us when we're dealing with like a general task that needs to happen, or if this is like something that's specific to system tools, maybe it's a task, maybe they're like looking at a demo or a webinar, and then like some of those functions that I have built out here, like data, feedback, workflow, system tools, and of course our status labels are completely customizable. So you can kind of work with like, you know, those groupings that you see fit. And then for type, we have is this something that we want Keith to do on his own, or is this something that we want Keith to do with his buddy? And so this visually is just going to let Keith know this is something that I'm doing on my own, this is the work I'm doing on my own, or this is something that like I need to schedule time with my buddy so that we can accomplish this together. I have, if you notice, some padlocks here on the top of these groups. This lock is going to let you know that there's a column restriction here. And I added a column restriction because I don't want our new hire to be able to edit that, right? So this is just going to be something that we want the owners of the board to be able to edit in that instance. Again, we have our link column because that's how we're linking them to those really valuable resources, and our date column, which is tied to the actual status here, and that's indicated by those links. Now, we have a time tracking column here. Now, the value there is that you're going to want to start to understand as you continue to do onboarding where you're spending the most amount of your time as a team, you know, onboarding that new employee. How fast did they get through these things? Were they moving too quickly? Were they spending too much time on one particular item? And we'll show you in dashboards in a sec how that kind of like transpires. We also have the tags column that I mentioned before, and in this instance, I added a progress column because one, it's my favorite column in the whole platform, but it's a really nice, gratifying way to like show the user or the person who's onboarding in this instance, excuse me, kind of like where they are and how much more they have to go before they find success here. So looking at the tasks here, right? Like we know we've made it this far down, and you might be wondering, oh, how do you build out like the actual task function, right? So what we did here is we have one of the tools that we use here at Monday is it's an internal tool called BigBrain, and one of our onboarding tasks as a customer success manager when you come in is you have to basically, after reviewing information on BigBrain, is like go ahead and take this like test, if you will. And that's going to be a nice way to get people to make sure that they're absorbing that information. So if we click here, that's actually going to open up for us the actual BigBrain test that we built out. And this would be like an example of how you can build in those functions onto the board to make sure that they are actually like absorbing that information and it's working well for them. Going back to the board here, one second. Yes, going back to the board here. Other things that you can see here is that we have like something like the support articles, right? So you can actually link to whatever your support pages are. This is a task that says we want you to read 10 monday.com support pages. This is a quick link that'll like get that person over to that to those articles, and then they can do the reading on their own time. What's really cool about the time tracking column right now, this is a beta feature, so it's not out to you guys, but it's coming soon. If we go ahead, as you can see here, this has nothing tracked right now. If we move this status to working on it, that is automatically going to start the timer here. So the system is now using the automation to show that since I moved this status to working on it, it's now automatically starting that timer. It's like one of my favorite things in the world right now. And when you move it to done or completed, it's automatically going to stop that timer for you so that like you're not necessarily needing to like go in and manually do it. And it looks like it may not have done it for me now, but like I said, it's a beta feature, so it's something that's coming soon. When the user is done with their onboarding, you might want to bridge the gap between the team onboarding and the HR onboarding, right? So this is the last item here, and I might want to use a mirror column in that instance. So if I go back to the company board here, and I add a mirror column, let's go to our column center. And I'm doing this because I want to make it easier for our HR team to see what's going on the team level for that board. So I'm going to select a board here. And let's go with onboarding. This is the department, right? So let's do this guy. And now I need to determine what information I want to see here. And I'm going to, in this instance, use the progress because I love that column, and done. What that does now is I can then go to, let's take a look. one of my items for general to-dos is to complete the team onboarding. And now that I have this mirror column here, I can say that I want to link this to that last thing that needs to happen here in this group. And that will basically let my HR team know where I stand, right? Like just visually, really quickly on the overall completion of the onboarding. Right now it's at 0%. If I go back to the department onboarding board here, and I go all the way down to week 4, and I change that last thing over to a completed status. Let's go ahead and do that so you can see what that looks like. And sorry guys, my computer is running a little slow. So now we see that this is at 100%. This is now completed. When we go over to the onboarding board for the HR, I can now see this progress has updated here, right? So now as an HR person, I just want to know that they completed the team onboarding, and I can see visually that they have because we're at 100% there. So that's a really nice way to begin linking boards and connecting for those like live updates. Okay, so finally now I want to go over the tool-specific onboarding board. So as you can see with this board, it's like much more simple. The core functionality here for this board is basically just going to give the user or the person who you're onboarding the basics of the platform, whatever platform you're using. In this case, we're looking at Monday. And we want to basically provide them basically articles or videos or any resources that we can that are going to get them up to speed. And this could be something that's like, you know, do it on your own time, on your leisure time. Just have it done maybe by the end of the month where they are reading all of these things. And we basically go through a flow of general tasks, the introduction into the system, learning the basics, how to communicate and collaborate on the tool, in this case Monday, and then becoming a pro. And by the end of this, you know, they should be a champion. They should be ready to jump in with the rest of the team and go right to work and feel very comfortable. So you should think about this as like a product wiki or just a general purely resource-based function to get the person up to speed and ready to go.